All right. Welcome into the A to Z Sports Big Orange Podcast. I'm Charlie Burris. That is Zach Reagan. Wherever you listen throughout the world, thank you very much for listening to us. We talk everything Vols every week here on the Big Orange Podcast. If you want to listen to that on the regular, go over to the A to Z Sports Podcast Network feed on Apple or Spotify. When you get there, rate, review, but more than anything, you got to subscribe. If you do subscribe, you won't miss our shows when we drop them on Mondays. And speaking of Mondays, it is one right now at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and that means that we are live on YouTube. A to Z Sports Tennessee Volunteers is your YouTube channel. If you go there, subscribe button, like button here if you want to hit that for us. But again, more than anything, that notification bell. If you hit the notification bell on YouTube, you'll be notified when we go live. And then it doesn't matter when we go live. It could be this. It could be halftime and postgame of the football games with me and Jonathan Crompton. It could be anything, and you'll be notified when we do that. At Charlie_Burris, at Zach TNT, at A to Z Sports, Facebook.com/A to Z Sports Natural, and A to Z Sports.com for everything that Zach writes on the internet. Been a little bit of a rough day for A to Z and the city of Nashville in general, frankly, and very, very unfortunately, a winter storm that, luckily for those of us in East Tennessee, and it kind of sounds like for you all over there in North Carolina, Zach, we dodged the worst of it. Nashville just destroyed right now. It's at the A to Z Sports, Austin Stanley, we've been texting with. He lost power for like 24 hours. Tree down in his backyard. Not great times, but I think we're okay. How you doing, Zach?
Yeah, I think Nashville got all the ice that we were supposed to get out this way, and luckily we dodged all that and kept the power, kept the heat, so not nearly as bad as we thought it might be. You just never know when these kind of things come around, but luckily we had some good playoff football to watch yesterday while we were all kind of dealing with the outside elements.
Yeah, it was a nice distraction. Man, there's almost nothing scarier. When they started talking early last week, they were like, looks like this could be ice instead of snow for the South. I was like, no. People, folks in the South, they know we're not prepared for that.
Hey,
we're not built for it.
No. What if this would have happened 2 weeks ago in the middle of all the transfer portal madness?
There could not have been a worse time.
Seriously.
All those guys at On3 that are based out of Nashville, just sitting there in the dark as the transfer portal happens. Pete Nakos would have been in a tough spot.
Yeah, and visits and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was that would have changed some things, I bet.
It definitely would have, but we have made it. And for today's show, obviously, transfer portal news. We're going to talk about the latest. There were 3 different pickups over the weekend for Tennessee. Basketball goes into Alabama and beats them with an NBA player on their roster. It was so satisfying. We'll talk about basketball near the end of the show. But first, we got to start with one where we really kind of got caught time-wise, unfortunately, with this one, where now we're talking about it when we can, but we're really late because we had our show last Monday, which was the night of the national championship. Indiana wins a national championship, which is unfathomable.
Yeah, I don't think that's set in yet, to be honest.
I truly, to the deepest part of me, I can't believe that happened. I try. my wife, she doesn't, do sports that much. Grew up in Ohio, but she's not Ohio State fan or anything like that. She's kind of agnostic. I tried explaining it to her to be like, understand, like, this is one of the craziest things I've ever witnessed. And it was almost tough to explain because it seems like a movie almost, where you'd be like, the losingest program of all time, the ultimate underdog. They won a national championship in year 2 of this, miracle worker coach. However they figured it out, I don't know. It's ridiculous. But they win a national championship. The very next day, which was the day after our show, they announce that Tennessee is taking Indiana's strength coach from them. He will now be the highest paid strength coach in America, the highest paid ever for someone holding that position. He's bringing other guys with him. They brought in a new nutritionist, George McIntyre. Eat your dinner if you're watching. But yeah, just wholesale changes there. And to me, this is bigger than the defensive coordinator because this guy built an extremely tough team at Indiana, a team that was clearly very disciplined. And, Cignetti's a huge part of that, and other coaches are part of that. But the strength coach can make such a big difference. Wait, if you remember, Zach, back when you and me were kind of full-time doing this stuff, covering Butch Jones, the strength staff was lackluster. And it really showed. They had constant injuries. They were kind of soft and just not as tough as you'd want them to be in an SEC schedule. And it makes a massive, massive difference. Like I said, we're late on this one, so we don't want to spend too much time on it, I guess. But what do you think of this hire?
Yeah, I mean, we knew when the season ended that changes were coming, and the strength coach was one of the positions that had been targeted. And it seemed, the defensive coordinator stuff happened really quickly with moving on from Tim Banks and hiring Jim Knowles, and the way Josh Heupel navigated that was quick and impressive, and you could tell he had a real plan. And then with the strength coach deal, we were kind of like, what's going on? Are they slow playing it? Like, you need to get this hire done because, as we saw last week was when the offseason workouts began last Wednesday. It's like, you got to get this done, like find somebody. And it was just kind of, radio silence on the strength coach deal. And then you mentioned the next morning after the national championship game, this report comes out. It was early too. I think that Tuesday morning, it's like 6 a.m. maybe when that news broke or something like that. I may be misremembering, but it seems like it was early in the morning, and he's on his way to Knoxville, less than 12 hours after they've won the national championship. Just insane the way that Heupel was able to put that together. I know he's officially, I guess he signed with Tennessee before the national championship, so it was all done before then. But to go get that guy who Heupel's worked with before at UCF for one season, Derek Owens, so you know that there's a little bit of a relationship there. But he had been with Cignetti for the last 5-6 seasons at James Madison in Indiana, so that there's a deep relationship there as well. And clearly they were in lockstep, because I don't think you win a national championship if the head coach and the strength coach aren't in lockstep with each other and have the same vision of the program and what needs to be done. So clearly the relationship between them, the working relationship at least, was good between the two of them. So to swipe that guy, from the team that back-to-back playoff appearances and won a national championship, I don't care what the logo is, that's in a program that's operating at a high level right now, and you went and got a key component of that program to come join your program that just went 8-5 and got blown out by Vanderbilt. I don't know, maybe he's the type of guy that needs a challenge or something, and he feels like he accomplished that challenge at Indiana, and now he wants to go to Tennessee and do it again. He definitely seems motivated. If you've seen the videos of him online, you got to be fired up about him, because he hit the ground running. There was no, let's celebrate this championship, let's bask in what we accomplished. I mean, he was right to work in Knoxville immediately. So I think it's the right guy, clearly. What Heupel did between the defensive coordinator, the strength coach, who's bringing along a couple of key members with him from Indiana, combined with the defensive haul and the transfer portal, defensively at least, I think we'll see a much more physical team in 2026. And then hopefully scheme-wise, we'll see a lot of improvement too. We'll see how that goes with Knowles and how that gets installed. And that'll be a journey we keep up with. But that was the Achilles heel for this team in 2025. You've heard some really, Brent Hubbs and all kinds of guys that don't spew hot takes, talk about how this team wasn't physical enough and couldn't finish games, and consistently at least. And that was a big problem. I mean, on three's Chris Lowe, another guy that's not a hot take artist, and he talked about, there's people in the program that don't think this team practices hard year round, not just in season, year round. That's an issue. And the tackling issues that we saw last season, finishing games, finishing important drives, finishing end of half and end of game drives, was a major issue. This is a huge step, in fixing those issues.
There were 3 things this past week that got me really hyped about Tennessee sports. One was obviously, do what?
Hyped.
Yeah, I got Josh hyped old.
Yes.
This week. One was obviously the Tennessee beating Alabama in basketball. It was just ridiculous. One was the interview with Mike Keith and Jim Knowles. Really liked what I heard from Jim Knowles.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. Also, shout out to his daughter, who is an alumni of Tennessee and apparently was texting him constantly trying to convince him to coach at Tennessee. So, huge shout out to her for bringing Jim Knowles in here.
Yeah, I had no idea about that connection, and
Yeah,
I pride myself on trying to uncover connections like that typically when Tennessee makes hires, but that was one that got past me.
yeah, just it's a great interview, and he seems like a really just cerebral, smart guy, tough guy who's I think bringing good stuff in here. That got me hyped. And in that video with Derek Owings, where it starts out and the first thing he says in the video is, "What do you say? You
You
can't be
cannot be
soft
soft
when you
go
go to
into
war." Oh, just freaking, just give me some steroids. I'm freaking jacked, dude. Oh my gosh, that's so good. And you look at Indiana, and clearly, they're all 25 years old, an entire team. I mean, Eric's kind of talking about it in the comments over here about how Indiana's losing a ton off of this team because
Yeah,
they're just so old.
it's the same as Vanderbilt. I mean, it'll be interesting to
Yeah,
see how those teams bounce back, no doubt.
yeah. It's a real test of can you truly reload when using that strategy.
And as an aside, just real quick on that, because I thought about this today, I think you're going to see a lot, and we've talked about this a little bit, but can you keep that consistently? Can you avoid that drop off? It goes the other way too. I mean, Oklahoma last year was a 6-win team, and they're in the playoff this season. So I think you're going to see, like, if you can just happen to hit the portal right and get a bunch of old guys, and then when they graduate out, if you're not able to replace them, you're going to see that go the opposite way, where maybe you were a playoff team and you went down to 8 wins, but you can get back up if you go load up with 24-year-olds again. It's just the volatility year to year right now is crazy.
Indiana and Vandy too are going to be a super interesting experiment of is this truly sustainable, because a ton of people are looking at Signetti and going, we got to do that too. I think Josh Heupel's doing it right now. You saw how they're handling this defense, some to a smaller extent the offense, where they're just going, we want these older guys over, relying on 5-star young talent coming in. We got to just get these older guys. Indiana's losing a ton off that team. There is a very distinct possibility that they take a decent step back. What does it actually look like? Do they go back to 6 wins? Probably not. I think they got a killer coach there, and he's going to do a good job.
Yeah.
But you're losing a ton of guys. You lost your strength coach. What are you going to do from there? And on the exact flip side, for Tennessee, you're seeing it and you want to emulate it. How does it end up going? The defense this coming year, if you add up, hopefully added toughness from Derek Owings, and who are the other two guys that look like complete psychos that he's bringing in?
Josh Huff? Is it Josh Huff?
Yeah, Josh
he
Huff.
looks like the classic strength coach guy with the mustache and the haircut.
I just was looking at it. Josh Huff and Carl Miller, the two guys. Carl Miller specifically for linemen. Or he's.
That sounds like a
lineman
strength coach name. Carl.
Oh yeah, Carl. Carl's gonna come in and just kick these dudes' butt, and I'm excited to see how much of an improvement you really get out of that with bringing in Knowles, bringing in Knowles' guys, some of whom are older,
and some of his coaches too,
and some of his coaches. It's kind of an interesting experiment. It's gonna be fascinating to see. I'm excited about it, and I think it's huge and shows that Heupel is really Heupel is serious about getting serious here, and I think that's really good and it's encouraging.
What do you think though now? I mean, so you've made these big moves this offseason. I mean, I think at this point, I'm going to say we've forgotten about the Vanderbilt loss. I mean, we'd already referenced it once in this show already, but that's worn off a little bit. It's been almost 2 months now since that loss, and the feelings that we all felt in the aftermath of that loss of like, hey, big changes need to happen. Like, you have to go make these big changes. We've said that a bunch before with coaches in the past. A few times it's happened, but usually the moves that you want to happen don't happen, right? This time around, they did, at least with the defensive coordinator and the strength coach, and you made these huge like dream hire, like probably the best hires you could make, right? I mean, we'll see if the fit was right a year from now, but on paper, it's the best hires that you could possibly make. What kind of pressure does that put on Heupel going into this season? Because sometimes it's like you make all these improvements. Yeah, I tweeted this about Lane Kiffin the other day too, with all these guys that Lane's added down there at LSU, from Jordan Seaton and Sam Levitt and all these top transfers. I was kind of joking when I tweeted about it. I was like, if LSU doesn't make the playoff next season, they should just go find another coach, because look at this roster. If Lane doesn't get done with this roster and this coaching staff, it's basically like moving Ole Miss down to Baton Rouge with better players. So it's not like you're starting over completely at this new program. I mean, it's that year-to-year thing. So, but back to Heupel, what kind of pressure does that put on Heupel going into this season? Because you've made these hires, everybody wants to see them pay off. At the same time, you've got 2 auto wins on your schedule next fall: Furman and Kennesaw State. You play Georgia Tech on the road. You got 9 SEC games. And the Vanderbilt game used to be the gimme game, and you can't even say that now, even with it being in Knoxville, which, I mean, I'll probably pick Tennessee to win that game when we get into next season, just because it's in Knoxville and they'll be motivated. But there's no guarantee, 6 wins on that schedule. I mean, you're starting out 2-0 basically, and then what do you do in those other 10 games? Those 10 games are going to be what defines this season. To me, you've got to beat Georgia Tech, and you've got to go 6-3 in SEC play, and that's 9-3 season with the expanded schedule. I think that gets you in the playoff conversation, or it should, because I think we'll have more 3-loss teams going into next season with this, again, expanded schedule. Where does Heupel need to land to be okay now?
That's a good question, because I think the worst he can do without people being very up in arms is, I mean, what do you think? 8-4.
Oh, Mark's right. I'm sorry. They play Vanderbilt in Nashville next year, so it's even worse. True. You lost in Knoxville. I guess we have forgot about it a little.
I mean, it's a home game for Tennessee still, but
yeah.
Ultimately, even when Diego Pavi is there, it's a home game for Tennessee. But I mean, 8-4 again. People are gonna be disappointed at 8-4.
Yeah,
they are.
And yeah, like it's a new 8-4. It's not the old 8-4 because it's
because your 8 wins. If you get 8 wins next year, you're gonna have some impressive wins. You are like that will involve potentially beating a Texas A&M,
LSU.
Some of the LSU, yeah. To get to 8 wins, you're gonna have to win some of those. So I think at 8 wins, you're going, well, hey, not great, but we beat Lane Kiffin or something like that, and he lives to see another day. But you dip below that especially when you did this wholesale change and you were really hoping to see improvement. I mean, I'll say for myself, I think about it. I've never been impressed with Glenn Ellerby. He's a guy that I could have seen fired for 3 years now and not batted an eye. No offense to him, but it's what it is. The offensive linemen haven't been very good. Sorry. But it gives me a little bit of comfort that they got this new strength coach coming in, and he seems super tough, and like he will bring a real edge to the trenches for Tennessee. And I'm going to be looking and going, is there marked improvement in the offensive line? And if there's not, that is going to be seriously disappointing. If you go in and you get pushed around again by the Vanderbilt Commodores like you did this last year, there's not a quicker way for me to be out on you than to get your head bashed in by Vandy. I cannot stress enough, Josh Heupel, or maybe somebody on Josh Heupel's staff that watches this, because I know they have people that do that. I cannot stress enough. Don't you ever get treated by Vandy like that ever again. Never, ever, ever. Butch Jones didn't get beat by Vandy like that. Give me a freaking break.
He did get beat by Vandy, though.
He did get beat by Vandy.
In Knoxville.
No, he did. And it made me incensed back then. But he didn't get beat by Vandy like that. Derek Dooley did. Derek Dooley lost to Vandy by like 20. If I'm remembering
that was the Tyler
correctly.
Bray, yeah. The last hurrah there.
that team had given all the way up. Yeah, but not
We
that
all
that's
had.
some.
We all had.
Yeah, we. I don't
We were
remember if I
full
even
John
fully.
Gruden at that point, I think.
Yeah, anybody but what was happening out there is what we all wanted. But I don't ever let that happen again. And I'm going to be looking and going, is there improvement there? Are you tougher? Are you the one doing the pushing around? Because that's what I want to see.
That's
And
what you saw from Indiana this year.
exactly. They were bashing people's heads in all the way up until they played Miami. Miami finally gave them the business.
Miami's defense was legit that night.
They were good. Yes, Miami's defense was very, very good. It was impressive that Indiana overcame that. Seriously.
Well, Miami just bought their own quarterback, I think.
They did. Yeah, Beck had his moments, but he's not that guy. And so they didn't do a lot to help the offensive line. I'm going to be looking. They did a lot to help the defensive line. Well, the edges. Not a lot on the interior, frankly, not enough.
There's still some guys out there that they could go get, but yeah, they need to continue.
Yeah, but on the edges, you help yourself. You got Xavier Gilliam on the inside. We'll see what happens. But I'm expecting more toughness. Do not get pushed around again. And so it's almost less the wins. I'm expecting like 9-3. It's a really, really tough schedule. I'll be super happy with 10-2. I'll be okay with 9-3, I think, because of the level of wins you'll have to get there.
Yeah.
And below that, it means you didn't improve as much as you needed to. I
think it depends on how those games look too. I mean,
yeah,
they got to be competitive. I mean, if something happens like the Georgia game, like none of us. I mean, yeah, Heupel could have done some things differently in that game, like kicking the field goal to go up 38-30 instead of being more aggressive. Which I know they had a false start, I believe, on that drive that really set them behind the chains and kind of threw things off. But it still felt like they could have been more aggressive. But I saw other coaches, good coaches, do similar things this season. Kirby Smart had a very similar situation at one time. So if you lose a game like that, it sucks. But it's like, sometimes that's just how it's going to play out. And as fans, sometimes you have to accept that. But like the Vanderbilt loss, like you're saying, getting blown out at home by a conference opponent that you've dominated forever, you can't have any more of that because you're moving in the wrong direction at that point, because that's not something that has been happening under Heupel since he got hired. This 25 season, there's a lot of reasons for it, but it was the first time that he kind of, taking a little bit of a step back, which led to some changes, and it may end up being a good thing for the program. And I think it's worth, Eric in the comments specifically asked you, Charlie, do you believe that Hype fired Banks on his own accord, or was he pressured? I think it was a thing of like, it was kind of it got to the point where everybody knew you can't run it back. Like after what happened, you just can't run it back. And I think everybody seemed on the same page as that, because I get the sense that Heupel seems kind of energized at this point with some of the moves they've made.
I think he may have done it a little begrudgingly because he just doesn't like doing that.
Yeah.
But I think he did do it under his own accord. I do. And maybe Danny White did come in and go like, yeah, this ain't working. You got to do something. Maybe he did do that. We're not going to know. Because as out of touch as I think Danny White is, I do think he realizes that him and Heupel are kind of tied at the hip.
Very much, I think.
Yeah. And so I'm sure first of all, Danny White's pockets get lined by Josh Heupel. And so football has to stay good for that gravy train to keep on rolling for Danny Dollars, But yeah, so I could see it. But I do think Heupel, yeah, if he wants to continue coaching, he better get it together. And it seems like he's making making aggressive moves, which is really nice. I am underwhelmed by the offense, while at the moves they made for the offense, while at the same time, Heupel's a offensive specialist. The offense, even in his worst years here, the offense hasn't just been absolutely horrific. Even the year with Nico, where it was pretty frustrating, it still got the job done 10 out of 12 times. So, yeah, I'm encouraged at this point. What it actually turns into in September, yeah, we'll see. but I think at least he's trying, and that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, and I think some of that coaching staff stuff really goes back to the way that he was fired by Bob Stoops. I think that just had such an effect on Heupel and the way that he manages his staff, and he's kind of overcompensated a bit, like trying to protect some assistant coaches. So it was a move. It was a step. He took a step as a head coach, I think, by making those moves. Allowing Knowles to bring in some of his guys. And as Knowles said in that interview with Mike Keith, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place. It's kind of been a weird things that have happened with. It's been a little bit of news, but not a ton of news. But that interview with Mike Keith, Knowles talked about how it's the first time that he's going to have a couple of staff members come with him. I don't know why that hasn't been able to happen in the past in the situations with when he was hired at Oklahoma State or at Ohio State or Penn State. But he's able to bring a couple guys with him that he hasn't had that luxury in the past, along with bringing in, was it 5, 6, 7 players from Penn State, something like that he's bringing in that will be able to fit right into this defense and take off from day one and understand what they're doing and help bring everybody else along. And you've got these assistant coaches too that can help bring your other assistant coaches along that stayed, like William Inge and Rodney Gardner. So I think it's set up for success, and that had to happen. Firing Willie Martinez, that's somebody Heupel had the connection with from Oklahoma 15 years ago. They go way back. Moving on from some of these coaches that probably wasn't easy for Heupel to let go of. That shows some growth to me with him as a head coach, a step that he had to take. Because when you really think about Josh Heupel, I know it's his 5th season at Tennessee, but he's still experiencing a lot of things as a head coach for the first time, like things that you didn't really experience at UCF, staff changes, having to navigate that. It's the first time he's been at a head coach at a school long enough where you get past that you survive the honeymoon period. You get through the honeymoon period, you survive that year or two after that, you survive year 5, which is something a Tennessee coach had not done since Philip Fulmer. Butch Jones was the closest that got to it and couldn't complete year 5. He got through that. It's the first time he's been in this spot in his career. This is usually the spot where you lose some key coaches or you have to move on from some key coaches to get to the next step. Dabo, we saw it with Dabo at the offensive coordinator deal at one time when he hired Chad Morris. It's just it seems like every coach kind of has this moment and they have to go meet this moment and make the right moves to get over the hump and to really get to the next level, or they just end up getting fired and having to go through the whole cycle again. So the fact that he did all that at this time in his tenure at Tennessee is a great sign to me. But like we keep saying, we just have to see how it plays out because there are no guarantees with any of these hires or any of these portal pickups or anything. Like we have no idea how this is going to play out in 2026. Just got to hope for the best.
I am excited. I'm not gonna be so cautious with the way that I feel that I won't let myself be excited with this hire for the strength and conditioning coach. We've seen the power of a strength and conditioning coach with your basketball team, Tennessee baseball with Quentin Everhart. That dude was a complete difference maker, and the the power hitting that Tony Vitello has had, that was not just Tony Vitello, picking out great guys. The strength and conditioning there was excellent. And it can just be so huge with your football team. So very excited to see where that goes. In the same, you had some transfer portal news this week. Not a ton to hit on here, but we will go through it. You had tight end Drake Martinez from UT Martin just coming in. Probably kind of a I've heard people talking about these guys. This is kind of a new phenomenon with transfer portal. Sort of like a walk-on that you're bringing in that's not totally a walk-on. Drake Martinez sort of like that. Ryan Staub, I think, at quarterback is kind of like that. Ian Duarte, where did he come in?
Idaho State.
From Idaho State. I think he's going to return footballs for you.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did punts and kick returns at Idaho State last season, I believe.
But everywhere else, I think he's going to just be depth. And then Jadaeus Richard from Miami. I think he's probably going to be depth too, but could probably be a player for you. He was the number 36 cornerback.
I think he could be. I think he's had some
Yeah.
injury stuff maybe one year in 24, and then he kind of got
Yeah.
passed a little bit and didn't play as much in 25. So we'll see. It's almost like a reverse Jacoby Thomas, not the exact same, but Jacoby Thomas didn't play at Tennessee in 24 clearly as much as he should have, based on what he did at Miami in 25. So sometimes you can get like a little sneaky addition like that ends up being way better than you expect. It's hard to know for sure, but I don't think anybody thought Jacoby Thomas was going to do what he did at Miami last season. And when
I
he
was gonna
left
say.
Tennessee in 24, it was surprising, but it's like, well, kept Boo Carter. And, in retrospect, that was the wrong decision. But at the time, we all thought it was the right decision. So I'm not trying to, go back and say that Tennessee did something wrong there. I think most people wanted them to do what they did. But obviously, didn't play out well for Tennessee.
I mean, Jacoby Thomas, what was he, MTSU? He came from?
Yeah. Grew up a Tennessee fan too. That was tough. And I think he left, like, listening to the interview he did at Miami near the end of the season. He didn't really, like, he was extremely appreciative of his time at Tennessee and talked about how much Tennessee meant to him. I think he just wanted to play more, and he realized he was not going to play over Boo. Maybe if he would have stayed, he would have, but based on the way last season went, it looked like he was not going to get the playing time he deserved. And when you look at the safety development that was happening these last few years with the old defensive staff at Tennessee, can you blame the guy for wanting to go somewhere where he'd be developed better?
Ugh.
And it seems that he was, because he's the Fiesta Bowl MVP, and he almost killed Fernando Mendoza in the first quarter of that championship game.
Yeah, that is a particularly depressing one. That I think Boo Carter was a factor there. And so he hits you twice. He's useless, and then he leaves, and then he's he's not the reason, but one of the reasons why Jacoby Thomas left. Like, that is just the worst. And there were just some things with this past season where I do have to give some grace to Heupel. You obviously had catastrophic injuries, and with Jermon McCoy
And Gibson
and Ricky Gibson. I mean, it just sucks. And then I assume Ricky Gibson played 0 and played like 3 plays.
Yeah, not much in that Syracuse game.
Seemed like he came back and kind of asked you for money, which, come on. and you almost have to say no. Like, no, we're not going to do that. Like, we're not going to give you more money for having not played. And so he's gone. Yeah, like, it was a bit of a brutal situation.
Yeah, Nico, a new center. I mean, a new center too. The first time that you've ever had a center not named Cooper Mays running Tennessee's offense, absent 23 when he was hurt.
And that's another one. Pendleton, who I was not particularly impressed with this year, almost seemed like he's playing out of position.
Yeah, I think he's a guard. I mean, he was a guard at Notre Dame. I mean, he can play center. He's serviceable, but he's much better at guard, it seems.
But except the guy you brought in, again, to the point of Glenn Ellerby not being the best he could be, the guys that you had brought in, and William Satterwhite, Pendleton jumped that guy. So that's not a great sign for the development of your players there. But that's a whole other conversation that we can have later when we get closer to the football season.
Yeah.
But I like these moves. I hopefully bringing in the new strength and conditioning staff will help with development and just make you tougher in the trenches. And I'm excited to see how that goes.
I think back with the tight end real quick, the Drake Martinez, and they also got the tight end from South Alabama, Trent Thomas.
Yes. Yep.
Maybe you had to bring in at least one guy when Van Doorslayer left, which was a bit surprising because he played last season. They have a ton of catches, but he's on the field a lot. I mean, he's on the field on the game-tying touchdown against Mississippi State through a key block for Joey Aguilar on that run. I mean, he saw action as a true freshman as a tight end. You don't usually see that a ton. I mean, sometimes, but he had a path to playing time at Tennessee, and then he's going to Oklahoma, where Jason Witten, Vol legend, is going to be his position coach, which is kind of odd. But at times in 2025, you saw Tennessee running some of these like jumbo packages where they bring in extra tight ends. They were often using defensive linemen as blocking tight ends. Nathan Robinson, Carson Gentle was one as well. It's kind of like a fullback, tight end uh, type position there that they were bringing them into play. And I wonder if, like, okay, let's go get some actual tight ends to kind of fill those gaps and to for some of those plays where you're going to bring Drake Martinez in. Maybe he's not the receiving option on the play, but he's an extra blocker that you bring in to help in the run game or something.
There's still guys to be had here that Tennessee, I think. I mean, we already mentioned, and actually Jason says it in the comments there, you need defensive tackles. We'll see exactly where they land. But I like what they've done this offseason between transfer portals and the coaches. Transfer portals. I guess you could sort of call the players that. Transfer portal guys and the coaches. I think they've done. I wish they would have done more on offense, but outside of that, I think they've done, especially on defense, they've done better than I thought they were going to. This staff changes, I think he's done as much, if not more, than I thought needed to be done. And so that's nice. And now it's just time to get down to business. It seems like they are, obviously.
Yeah. I think one thing with the offense, I mean, really, you brought in some offensive linemen, and I would have liked to have seen them be more aggressive at the running back position. Wide receiver, you weren't going to do much because you can't run off those young kids. You got too much talent in that room, so you weren't going to bring in somebody to play over top of those guys, especially Staley and Mike Matthews, and then Radarius Jackson, Travis Smith. Those guys should be able to contribute this season with Brazel moving on. The quarterback position was the big one that you obviously didn't address. And with what we've seen the last few days in college football over the last week or so with some of the tampering stuff happening, I'm wondering if it feels like something's coming down at this point, because like with the Dabo and Ole Miss basically calling out Ole Miss for tampering and going line by line exactly how they tampered. I mean, the most transparency you've ever seen in a situation like that coming from Dabo. It's like an 11-minute deal that he went on. And it was, whatever you think of Dabo, I mean, I thought it was pretty incredible the fact that he was willing to go out and kind of be the first guy to go out there and call somebody out, because everybody's talking about it, but everybody's doing it too, or most people are doing it. So they don't want to turn anybody in. Well, we know now that we know what side of the line Danny White's on. He's on the play fair side. And maybe he's pushing it up against the line a little bit because you have to, almost a little bit. But he's not going to cross that line. He's not going to go try to get a quarterback out of their contract like Miami's doing with the Duke quarterback, or like Kiffin tried to do with the Washington quarterback before he got Levitt. None of that's going to happen. And that is why Tennessee didn't get a quarterback. I mean, it's so cutthroat right now to go get a quarterback, like a top level, top tier, top rated quarterback. If you're not willing to do that, you better evaluate really well and go get somebody like Trinidad Chambliss, like Ole Miss lucked into last season. So otherwise, you have to tamper. Like, you have to tamper big time. And Tennessee's just not. They're not going to do that. And I don't know if they're trying to set themselves up here for something when are more teams going to start turning in other teams now that Dabo's kind of broke the seal on that. I don't know. I mean, if they're going to be on this side of it, I feel like you have to be that person. Like, yeah. if you're going to be like, we're not going to tamper, then that gives you the leverage to go out there and call out other programs. If you want to be that, I don't know if you want to be that or not, but I feel like you almost should be.
I just really feel more like
tamper until they tell you can't.
Yep, exactly. I think you're going to look back and you're going to see that Dabo was on the wrong side of history. Is that he just got not necessarily on the wrong side of history. I mean, if you're talking logically and ethically, he's probably doing the right things.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, he is for sure. But that's not what's going to get wins in this sport. We know that.
But I think you're going to look back, and I think Dabo Swinney's going to get fired, and I think he's going to get left behind by the game of college football. Is what I think is going to happen, because he didn't play the game, and Heupel is towing that line. You know, you got a Chaz Coleman, you got some big hits in this transfer portal, but you didn't get Sam Levitt, and you had to get Sam Levitt. You were going to have to play as dirty as Lane Kiffin, and Heupel's not going to do that.
Well, that's the dirtiest. That is the dirtiest that you can play. Yeah. So
I mean, Danny White's not going to let him. he's just not gonna even. I don't even know if Heupel would want to do that. And
Maybe not. I mean, I
so
don't think he's that kind of guy.
it doesn't seem like it. But
Which is a good thing, but
yeah,
also
like I said, you're gonna look back and you're gonna go, yeah, Dabo was probably following the rules to a certain extent. Also, Dabo was a freaking cheater years ago. We know
well,
Clemson paid players plenty, so a little rich coming from him. But far be it from me. He has fought the transfer portal stuff, and he has stayed on the quote unquote correct side of it.
he's been true to his beliefs. That's for sure.
He has, and it's going to bury him. That's what I think. I think we're going to look back and we're going to be like, well, that was a sign that Clemson wasn't going to get the players that they need to win at high level in college football.
No doubt. You have to utilize the transfer portal to win a championship to some extent. I mean, you have to.
Period. And until the rules change, it's gonna be this nightmare. And the toughest part out of all of this is that national championship was the most viewed in over 10 years. So what motivation from high levels of college football is there to change stuff? Because everybody's not just making their money, they're making more than they ever have. And,
well, I think the only thing that's going to put, force some change or structure is the rising salaries for college football players, because they're rising rapidly. Rapidly. Yeah. I mean, I don't think we're far away from a $10 million college football player for 1 year. I think that's going to happen soon. If it hasn't happened already, I don't know. Maybe it has. We just don't know it. But I think that's definitely going to happen very, very soon.
Did you see? This was in passing on Twitter. I don't know. I didn't look into it to try to confirm from a reputable source. I saw somebody say that LSU is paying Jordan Seaton $8 million. $8 million bucks. Go back and look at that guy's stats. They're not great, or whatever you'd call them for an offensive lineman. His reps. He wasn't some, absolutely elite of elite of elite. He was playing in the Big 12, and his
on a bad team,
his play wasn't amazing. Yeah. So, $8 million bucks.
Because I think you gotta look at makeup too, beyond just talent. If you don't get the right makeup, I mean, we know that well at this point. We just watched it with Boo Carter and this whole saga over the last, since last summer into November when he was kicked off the team. The makeup was terrible. I mean, no disrespect to the kid, as I don't know him personally, but what we saw, the makeup was not good. And saying some of the most talented players, you better make sure the makeup is right, because I don't know about Seaton. There's just been too much with that guy since he was a high school recruit all over the place. I mean, he's a perfect fit for Kiffin. Kiffin finds a way to make those guys work somehow. Maybe I'm sure he probably will work out somehow down there, but $8 million would be nuts. $3 million would be nuts.
Yeah, I mean, that's more than enough for him as a player, at least from the stuff I've seen.
I mean, he pulled the move basically that Nico wanted to pull, or Nico's camp wanted to pull last year.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. But I liked. Yeah, I tune into Basilio at lunchtime, a few times a week, and I've heard him say, "Goofy recruitment, goofy career," and I think that really, there's a lot of merit to that, because Jordan Seaton, it was a super goofy recruitment. He's gonna have a goofy career, but hey, he made his money. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Boo Carter was wrapped up in that with Seaton. I mean, they were kind of they were on Instagram lives with each other, back through all that, and Boo Carter took the visits to Colorado late before he signed. I mean, everything that we thought was a risk with him ended up happening.
And now I think you could almost say, how would you say it? Goofy transfer portal antics, goofy career.
Yeah.
Like a Ricky Gibson. He plays the games before the season. Tennessee keeps him. He gets injured, and then he's still coming back for more money. You're supposedly, I don't know what happened behind the scenes there, but whatever happened, he wasn't staying at Tennessee after not playing for an entire season. He leaves, and you just those are red flags. They just are now. And yeah, it is what it is, and it's widespread across all of college football because they're
Yeah.
kids. But
Give me, I mean, I don't care what any kid makes in particular. That's between them and the school and the agent and all that stuff. But on the whole, give me the kid that is worried about his pro future is and just wants to win. Like, yeah, they know they're going to get paid if they're a good player, and the money will come, and they should, you know, get whatever's fair. But I want the kid that just wants to win. Like when he comes on his visit, all he's talking about is how you're going to use me. What's your vision? How are we going to win games? You know, how am I going to be a better pro
yep,
player? That's my goal. I want to get to the NFL and have a long career. Not let's see how much money we can swindle out of somebody.
100%. Greg in the comments, he asked, how do you guys feel about the QB situation? I like McIntyre. We really fleshed that out last week. If you want to go back and listen to that, it's obviously a pretty large conversation. The long and the short of it was sort of, we'll see. A pretty good chance that he's going to have to get his sea legs under him.
Yeah.
And so you might struggle early in the season. And then hopefully by the end of the season, he's strong. But yeah,
we think he's talented. We think that he can play. You worry about his weight, and he is inexperienced. I do think he's going to have mistakes. He's going to make mistakes. It's part of the learning process that you just don't get to learn on the practice field as much anymore because you got to go be the guy when you're 20 years old now, or you know if you're making money. I have a lot of thoughts on quarterback development at this point, but that's one. I mean, it's a gamble. If he's the starter, there's nobody on this planet that knows what he's going to do. Not even him.
No.
I mean, you just got to go see what happens, type deal. But I think he's talented enough to get the job done if he can physically withstand it, and if he can process everything mentally on Saturdays when the lights are bright.
And hopefully the new nutritionist is it Katie O'Connor, I think is her name. Get him eating. Figure out, navigate these. I've heard multiple times now that he supposedly has food allergies. Got to navigate those. If it's not
Get
a peanut allergy,
7,000 calories in him a day somehow.
Yeah, exactly. What'd you say last week? Have him eat a jar of peanut butter.
Yes, every day.
If that's what it takes. All right, let's finish with this, Zach. The basketball team. It was a wild week leading up to that Alabama game on Saturday because it was just such classic. Like Nate Oates has been a scumbag his entire time at Alabama, from the Brandon Miller stuff to just his general antics, and now this Charles Bediako thing. Earlier in the season, I saw this clip multiple times last week. He got asked about that directly, and he said something crosswise about like people bringing in, because it was about Baylor. Baylor brought in that guy who was from the G League, and and Nate Oates said, it's not good and whatever he said, and then of course they go and they get Charles. They had first of all, their post presence this season is really bad. They had injuries. And so they did need somebody in that spot, no doubt. And they go out and just shamelessly go and get this kid who left after 2 years in 2023, still had eligibility left because he's been a failure in the pros. And they brought him back by using a judgment from a judge who is a 6-figure donor to the University of Alabama, and who's supposedly, at least I think this was on like AL.com, I saw that same judge's wife is a lawyer who represents the guy from the Brandon Miller murder case. Not Brandon Miller wasn't the murderer. Brandon Miller supposedly brought the murder weapon to the murder. Whatever that guy's name is, the wife of this judge is representing that guy in court. And they're massive donors to the university. It's like you could not write a more villainous timeline than this if you wanted to. Just the deepest, most scumbag move you could possibly think of is what Nate Oates did last week. And then Tennessee gets to go in and beat them. I don't if you have any thoughts on the Bediako stuff. I mean, it was just ridiculous. Then we can talk about the game.
Yeah, I mean,
any
It is definitely hilarious that Tennessee beat them with him on the court playing. But yeah, the whole thing is as corrupt as you can get. I have to wonder, like when they're going through this, at some point somebody said, because I mean, all these college athletic departments are hyper aware of media and what media is saying and reactions. I mean, they consider how things will be received before they do them. I mean, that's standard operating procedure at every Power Four school and pretty much every college period. At some point, someone in that room said, "How do we think this will be received?" And somebody, probably Nate Oates, said, "I don't care. It doesn't matter." Like they didn't. They addressed that question and chose to continue on with it, and they got, I mean, blown up by everybody. It's the first time I've seen like Kentucky fans pulling for Tennessee to win a game. I mean, I saw that like some of the Kentucky sports radio guys. Insane. Like you never see that. So that when you put Kentucky fans on Tennessee's side of something, you've made quite a decision. And somebody on Twitter, I can't remember, I saw it. It was a Tennessee fan. I can't remember. They said something like, "I've said twice in my life, I can't believe they're letting this guy play basketball." And both times it was about an Alabama, player with
I
Brandon
saw that
Miller,
tweet.
obviously. Yeah, I was like, that's yeah.
I,
So,
truly, they have taken it to another level of just being shameless degenerates in the scope of college basketball. Like it just is ridiculous. And they've gotten a Final Four out of it. Congratulations to them. But uh, right now, Rick Barnes absolutely owns them. 5 in a row, Tennessee has won twice in their dinky little basketball arena down there.
oh, so
And
it's such a
ugh,
unsatisfying way to watch a game. Like when you're watching that game on TV, it just looks, it's not visually pleasing.
and the stupid, I don't. At some point, they got to change this. The stupid hard hats. It's just something about it just makes me. I mean, Tennessee has now won twice in a row there, and so like we've overcome it. But it just something about it just pisses me off. I don't know. It's just gimmicky and annoying. Um, but it's I truly like regular season college basketball games. I don't get too worked up unless it's Kentucky from last week, where I was just so mad that they lost that game because it was so dumb.
Mm-hmm.
Or a game like this, where truly you're just delivering poetic justice because they got down by 10 and I was ready to shut it off. Like I was like, this is so stupid. And Bediako scored 6 points or something. And Dave Neal is losing his mind, like as if Charles Bediako. I saw somebody on Twitter say like Dave Neal is talking like Charles Bediako like beat cancer.
Yeah,
He's coming back. Like,
it really was.
like that's the reason he had been out, and not just because he failed to, make it in the pro levels. It's just making me sick. Like I just was like, oh god, this is so annoying. And the same sort of just lame offense has showed up for Tennessee. They just weren't, they weren't finding the shots that they needed to, and it was so annoying. But then, especially after Nato Mint turned it on and Tennessee got that lead in the second half, I was like, edge of my seat. I think I texted y'all. I said we have to win this. Tennessee must win this basketball game, like for America. Tennessee had to do it for everybody else in college basketball. And they did. They delivered the poetic justice. It really was beautiful, and you get to hang that over Alabama fans' heads. I mean, you got to beat them again. I believe they come to Thompson Bowling here in a few weeks.
Which Nate Oates completely forgot
Alabama,
about in the post-game press conference. He's like, maybe we'll see him in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, he would do that. But they did have two of their best. I think it was their second and third leading scorers were out for that game. But
seen Tennessee lose those games before, so I mean,
yeah,
just a couple guys are out doesn't mean
it means nothing to me.
Especially on the road.
Bediako had like 15 points, and those other two guys, how much were they going to score? 15-ish, probably. And so you at least got the equivalent of one of them back. And so obviously, I would never have sympathy for Alabama in a situation like this. And and I'm laughing at you. You're a bunch of clowns, and you deserve everything that you got. And I hope that you continue to lose as long as Charles Bediako is allowed to play. Now he has a hearing on Tuesday. He has tomorrow that may strike it down.
That would be hilarious if it.
Yeah,
they lost
he gets
the
to play
game.
for one game. And that may be the case. If he does get to go on, it definitely does help Alabama. It gives them an actual legitimate post presence
and an old player. Old players matter, even in basketball. I mean, it matters.
But it's still in some of those moments. I mean, you saw it, and I think our friend at A to Z, Craig, he tweeted about it after the game. It was an actual NBA player in Nate Mint against a guy that couldn't cut it in the pros, and you saw it. Just they went up against each other at certain points in that game, and you just went like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I get it. I see why Nate Mint has this kind of hype." So, with all that said, putting aside all the Charles Bediako stuff, the way Nate Mint played in this game is that it was the dream. It was what we were all hoping we would get out of this guy. And if he continues like this, and that this was him figuring it out, because I'm a little leery. It was super exciting. I'm a little leery, though, because Alabama's defense is trash. And it has been the entire time under Nate Oates. I hope it wasn't just Alabama's defense to whatever extent. It wasn't.
He made some tough plays, too.
Yes. He made some really tough plays. That drive to the rim where he got the and one, and he screamed after. I was like, here's the guy. This is the guy we need. This has to continue. That's incredibly exciting. And I would say that gives you 2 of the 3 puzzle pieces that you need to have a Final Four-ish level team, because you have to have him and Jacoby Gillespie scoring, and one more. It needs, if it's Estrella, if it's Jalen Carey, and hopefully Jalen Carey's okay. Rick, after the game, said he probably hyperextended his knee. I got to think, 2, 3, 4 weeks he might be out. Hopefully it doesn't go beyond that. But I'm liking, and Eric says in the comments, Mint had a good game against Kentucky too. He's been building up to this.
His last 4 games have been good.
Yes. He's averaging something like 21, 22 points over the last 4 games. If he continues in that same vein, you really have something here. And then if JP Estrella, who had a really nice game against Alabama, I tweeted about this. I think it was the best game he's had for Tennessee. And he didn't stuff the stat sheet. He just got super clutch rebounds. Late in the game, tough, hard-nosed rebounds. He went after the ball and made smart plays. And, that's huge. You cut down on the turnovers, except Jacoby Gillespie still had one that could have been absolutely catastrophic near the end. Alabama went down and missed a 3 after, thankfully. But just a really bad turnover. That has to stop. But like I said, it's 2 of the 3 pieces. If you can get the scoring in the post to come along from whoever, I don't care who. If it's Okpara, if it's Carey, if it's JP Estrella, I don't care. But somebody else to just add 12, 15 points a game. And that's how you are, like I said, a Final Four level team. So it's close. It's close. You just gotta get up and over that hill. And the game got moved. Georgia is Wednesday? It's gonna be a tough game. They're pretty good. They're not great. But you got another good test coming up where I think you could be impressive and get a nice road win.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Nate Mint reacts to this stretch, because he's got some confidence now. You did it in a huge game, a game that had a ton of hype around it because of the NBA player playing in it. And you go out and you score 29 points on the road in front of a hostile crowd. I mean, that really does feel like that kind of just growing moment where it's like, all right, now you can take off. Now you know you belong. All right, you've got past some of the struggles, and Barnes talked about, in the post-game presser after Alabama, how he's playing a little different than what he played in high school. They're asking him to do things that he didn't do in high school, so he's kind of having to learn the nuance of all that on the fly while being a go-to option in his offense. So it's understandable why he got off to an uneven start at times this season. But the talent's undeniable, and if he, like you said, if he can play to that level, I mean, man, I mean, that's the guy that you have to win some of those games. Like, you can go down and he's only going to get better. I mean, he's still not even close to his ceiling yet. So
Yeah.
there's more left. I mean, if you need him to score 35 points to win a tournament game, he's capable of doing it, clearly. So that's definitely exciting. I mean, that's what we've been talking about these last 2 months is like maybe at some point in January or February, he'll turn the corner and start to figure it out. And it looks like he is, but got to keep it going. Got to stay confident because there'll still be bumps in the road for him. And he's got to understand that as a young player. It's not going to be perfect from here on out just because you scored 29 against Alabama. I mean, you got to go get it now.
And the defense was much improved in that game too. And for whatever reason, Barnes, for a number of years now, his teams have played really well against Nate Oates. Just however those styles stack up, Barnes' teams have played really well against Alabama. But defensively, I want to say Alabama didn't score for the final 4 minutes, something like that. And that sealed the game. And you were able to sort of hang on for dear life, make a couple of free throws. But they do have to cut out boneheaded turnovers. One that was really offensive was they were coming down. It was Alabama had to foul them because time was running out. Jacoby Gillespie had the ball in his hands, and he passed it to Bishop Boswell, who's a 64% free throw shooter. And I just went, why would you do that? What? Son, you're the best free throw shooter we have on this basketball team. Why would you pass the ball to a kid who's a 65% free throw shooter? Just stuff like that, where you go, hey,
just take the foul. They're going to get you. Like, you're not playing NBA 2K where you're trying to pass the ball around. But.
And Boswell missed one of the two, if I'm thinking correctly. So, just some stuff like that. Cut it out. You got to finish games the way you finished that Houston game, where you made all your free throws. You played really smart basketball. So we know it's in there. You just got to go out and do it. We'll see what happens against Georgia. That's a show. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, thank you to everybody who tuned in and hung out with us. I always say it. We couldn't do it without you. I always mean it. So, yeah, that's it. We'll be back. Maybe some additional transfer portal news this week. Maybe some basketball news. I did see this, Zach. Here's some for you. Tuscaloosa judge Jim Roberts has extended Charles Bediako's restraining order another 10 days because of counsel's unavailability for the hearing on Tuesday. One of the judges is from the state of Tennessee and couldn't attend because of the weather.
Oh, that makes sense.
So thanks to the storm, we're going to get to see the pro play another game or two for Alabama.
Who do they play next?
I think it's set it below. Missouri. Yeah. So there you go. There's one on the way out. So, again, Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, thanks for tuning in. And yeah, that's it. We will talk to y'all. Dude, Zach, I always think I didn't have it open.
You had it last week.
I did. I thought that I was building brick by brick. We were.
That's Kentucky's thing now.
This week.
That's Kentucky's thing now.
Oh, that's true. With that new football coach, yeah, he's a brick by brick guy. Yeah, I did not go 1-0 this week, unfortunately. Sorry to Butch Jones. All right, that's it. We will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.